أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا وزدنا علما يا كريم. Oh Allah, help us learn what is beneficial to us and help us benefit from what you have enabled us to learn and increase our knowledge. Amen. Again, quick reminder. I know that we forget because of life, we always forget, that kids are responsibility. It's an amana. I like to repeat that in almost every session I teach. Is just a quick reminder, this is an amana. Allah have entrusted us with these kids. They're not ours. They're not our own. We don't own them. Okay, they are, the ibadullah, right? Just like us. And Allah entrusted us with them to take care of them to the best of our ability. And that's why, inshallah, all of us are here just trying to help each other, trying to exchange knowledge, learn more, know more, so we can, inshallah, ya Rabb, raise righteous kids. So with that, let's purify our intention, mine and yours, that we're doing this solely for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Not because of our egos, not because of a worldly concern or a worldly gain, just because we're doing, it's an amana, and Allah asked us to make the sa'i, to exert the effort. The results are in the hands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But we have to do the sa'i. It's our job. It's our job to do the sa'i, and Allah, inshallah, will accept from us. And never underestimate, again, the power and the barakah of the dua. Learning is extremely important. No one argues about that, and it's a responsibility, because if we want to do our best, let's learn, let's know more. So, but above all, the dua, just, subhanallah, open hearts. It changed minds. It helps a lot. So always make dua for your kids in salah, every salah, at night, like anytime, right? When you see them right in front of you, make dua that Allah guide them. And inshallah, may we, all of us, have like righteous kids, inshallah. And with that, I'm going to start our session today, inshallah, Rabbil Alameen. Just a quick reminder that last time I kind of talked about that we have 6 sessions, right? So the first session, which was last time, we talked about understanding ourselves. We talked about the barriers in our own childhood and our own life and experiences that can be hindering our abilities to have like a positive relationship with our kids and a secure attachment with our kids. We discussed some of them in that session. Today, inshallah, as I mentioned, we are going to go into understanding our children. Because we said we have to understand ourselves, where we are coming from, but we also have to understand the people who we are dealing with, right? If we don't understand what they can really, their brain maturity, what they can understand, how their brain works, their temperament traits, their needs, their, stage of development, all of that, if we don't understand that, it would be very hard to reach our goal. So today, inshallah, of course, I'm not going to be able to shed the light on everything about the child. That's a separate course. But at least I'm going to talk about a couple of things that are extremely important for any parent to know before, honestly, they start parenting. But it's okay. If we didn't get it then, at least, we're getting it now. The last 4 sessions, starting from next time, inshallah, we're going to be discussing the 6 S's. Okay, which are the elements that are needed to establish secure attachment and a positive relationship, as we said last time. And so let's start with understanding our children, right? Understand the child's world. Who is the child? How do they think? What do they know? What can they understand? Right? And are they, like, sometimes we think they're just mini adults? Are they like little people? And obviously the answer is no, they are not. They don't have the same abilities. They don't have the same brain maturity as an adult. And we're going to be discussing this, inshallah, during today's session. But Since I'm not going to be able to cover all the items about understanding your child, I just want to pinpoint the items that you see on the screen. These are critical items for all of us to go and read about. Today, inshallah, I will be covering like a couple of those. But I encourage everyone who's listening to just go and search about other items that's not going to be discussed, and even increase your knowledge and understanding about even the items that I'm going to be discussing today. So these are child needs. What are the child needs? Child needs are not only emotional or social. We're talking about physical needs, of course, social, emotional, which is our area. This is the area that we're going to be focusing more on. But then there are cognitive needs, their spiritual needs. We need to understand this creature, this little guy or girl. Who are they, right? Number two, we need to understand their temperament traits. That is critical. It causes a lot of problems between parents and kids when we don't understand that kids have certain temperament that are inborn, right? So we fall into like a big mistake of thinking that, oh, these are bad kids. Number three is the brain science, and we're going to be discussing this today. Developmental stages and milestones. Please, please, please. We need to understand how our kids develop, like their brain development, like their motor development, fine motor development, sensory development, language development, cognitive development, right? So all what you need to do is just like go on any search engine and write the age of your kid and write developmental milestones or ages and stages for kids and put your kid's age, right? So you will find a lot of resources online telling you like what is the range of norm for that age group, right? And what are the warning signs that if you see those, you need to go and check with a professional and so on and so forth, right? So we need to know that. I'm not going to be discussing this today. And of course, the effect of birth order on sometimes children understanding and children behavior. And again, I'm not going to be discussing this today. What I will discuss today are the first, not even the first three items, just the needs, the social emotional needs. I'm not going to be discussing physical and cognitive and spiritual. That's for another courses, inshallah. So with that, now we know what we're going to talk about. So the first is, what are the main social emotional needs? And as I said last time, it's amazing that the main social emotional needs of the child are the same items, subhanallah, that build the secure attachment with our kids. No wonder. It's like Allah is the creator. So, you know, it all makes sense. If these are their needs, and you know we are as parents and caregivers fulfilling these needs, then Allah kind of put this attachment, this a connection, this sense of belonging, like between us, right? So and those are of course the 6 S's, and I'm not going to repeat them because these are going to be the focus of our sessions, our next 4 sessions, inshallah. So it's just naming them. Children need to feel to be safe, seen, soothed, successful, significant, and having a sense of direction. And of course, let me reiterate, there are a lot of classifications, different items, different names. Sometimes people will give different names for these or choose to use different terms, right? But, you know, I found those to be really clear. And those are the terms that are mainly used for people who talk about attachment and secure attachment, right? So between Dr. Daniel Siegel, Matei and Neufeld, Dr. Schfali, you know, those are basically the terms that usually they use to talk about establishing the secure attachment, right? And the positive relationship. So with that, we are going to talk about our, I would say, first item, which is the child temperament trait. So to talk about child or children's temperament trait, let's see it this way. All of us across the board, right? We notice that children have differences, right? Even they're born different, not even when they're 10 or 15. I'm talking about even as babies. Babies are different, right? And infants and toddlers are different from each other. So we always say, oh yeah, he's such a good boy, or she's a little monster, or he's an easy kid, he's an angel, or oh no, he's so difficult. I can't just relax because of him. Sometimes we say things like, my kid, my 3 years old is just, doesn't understand the word wait, please. He's just on the move. But subhanallah, my sister's kid, who is the same age, she's so calm and quiet, right? Or we might say, oh, he's so sensitive, or she's so shy, or they're high strung, and we give a lot of expressions and descriptions and labeling, and a lot of time most of the labels are negative, which we're going to be discussing inshallah, right? But the thing is, kids are born with certain traits, with certain characteristics. And those are, some of those, we call those temperament, right? Again, there are so many different classifications for temperaments. The one that I usually use, because it's the kind of very famous and very practical, and you can really apply it and see it right in front of your eyes, is the 9 temperament traits. So what is temperament in the first place? Like, what is temperament? Temperament is basically the child's emotional and behavior style. Simply, we call it, this is not really like very scientific 100%, but we call it the personality, the child's personality. Okay. So we say, oh, this child is like active. This child is shy. This child is very reactive. This child is so sensitive, right? It's the way they interact with the world. It's the way they behave, okay? And the way they feel and react to situations. That is their temperament, okay? So temperament traits are found to be, they are inborn. What does inborn mean? Temperament traits are inborn, which means that they are basically, like the word implies, inborn mean they are born, kids are born with those temperaments, okay? They're born like that. And when we discuss the 9 temperament traits and the examples, you will definitely know what I mean, okay? So kids are born like that, whether it's something genetics or biological, or this or that, they are born with these characteristics, with these traits, okay? And, for quite some time, scientists believe that, it's only genetics, like it's only determined by genes, right? So it's like inheritance and stuff. But research now, the more they do research and results come out, the more they see that actually, some like environmental factors affect kids even in the womb, like we call it prenatal. For example, prenatal influences can affect also the child temperament, not only just the biology or not only the genes, but even like probably you have heard before people saying, don't be stressed when you're pregnant because the baby can be anxious, or the baby can turn out to be temperamental, or it can affect your baby's mood or stuff like that. So research that's coming out is telling us that actually is can be highly true, because they found that there's a relation between the temperament of the child and if the mom suffered especially like from depression or stress, and when I say stress, I don't mean the regular stress, right? Like severe stress or anxiety. So parents who suffer during pregnancy from situations like that, they found out that it affects the child's temperament. So when it's still inborn, but it's not just genetics. That's what I'm saying. And now they're saying the whole process is complex. Like it's like, they are still studying, by the way, to fully understand. They know for sure that there is a genetic and a biological inborn element, for sure, but they are trying to see the effect of the environment after the child is born. How does the environment influence that, right? So there is definitely an environmental influence on those traits, right? Meaning that the way after the child is born, the way we interact with the child, the way the experiences that the child go through, the environment, and the level of interaction with parents and teachers and sibling and people around and situations where he or she are born, it does influence those traits. So he's born with certain characteristics, but these characteristics or traits can be basically modified or influenced by the environment, the external environment, right? So basically, then we have a responsibility here, because the way we will interact with the child and his temperament or her temperament will influence the outcome first. So we can help them kind of modify this temperament if it's challenging, if it's putting them in challenging situations. Also, they found that when kids actually grow up, they grow more mature, and then gain self-awareness, they can modify their own temperament in a way. But the amazing thing that also they found is, and that's what, it's all research, okay? They're saying that while attitudes, behaviors, and decisions can change, yes, but like we can tame our temperament, we can adapt to certain things, we can modify certain things, but the original temperament or tendency is still there. It's constant, and it is part of us. So basically, they want to say that the biological and genetic part is there. And although we can modify this through epigenetics and this and that, yet the tendency somehow is still stuck. An example, just to clarify that, is, people who are, let's say, they are not very social. They're under one of the characteristics, we call it the more withdrawal, right? They're not very, social. They're not like social butterflies. They grow up and they feel, their parents help them to be more social and confident if there's a problem with that. And then when they grow up, they decide, that I want to be more social. So you can change your brain, that. So they put an effort and they try to change that, and it's great. But the difference is, the initial tendency is that they're not outgoing. They're doing it deliberately. They are changing, their tendency. They're trying to do that. So basically, it's more they exert effort to do the change versus someone who is innately outgoing and social. They don't do any effort. It just comes out very, very simple. Okay. So the short answer that temperament traits, although they are basically inborn, yet the environment and the influence and the interactions can definitely just modify or help, kind of change these. But again, if any change will happen, it has to be a positive change. It is very gradual, and we will talk about that in a specific when we take more examples. Okay, so what are these temperament traits? So what are the 9 temperament traits? The first one is activity level. Okay, so some kids are very active, right? And I'm not talking about ADHD. I'm not talking about any disorders or any diagnosis. I'm just talking about the norm. The range of norm is that some kids are very active, right? We call them sometimes overactive, not hyperactive, overactive. Okay, and they are, they're just like they say, on the move. They cannot, they want to play. They're physical. They want to jump. They want to do physical activities. But then you will have another kid who is very, very calm, very you know, doesn't like yani low, has low activity level, right? Like if you give them the choice, you will find one going outside and jumping on the trampoline, and the other one is sitting on the couch reading a book, and that is the majority of their, or drawing or doing something kind of like without physical activity. So with every single one of these traits, the 9 traits, I want you to know that every kid and every one of us actually, right, has like a level of these traits. And the way scientists explain it is like, it looks like, if you look on the slide, it's kind of, it goes on a spectrum or a continuum. So you can be very high in this trait, or very low, or anything in between. So you have people who are very highly active, you have people who are low in activity, and then you have middle, and then you have in the middle between low and high, you have some who are here, not that high, but still active. So the thing is like, it's kind of a continuum or a spectrum, and all of us are somewhere in between, and each trait has its own continuum, right? So you can be high in activity level, but very low in adaptability, for example, right? So everyone has a mix and match. It's a mix and match of these 9 traits on the spectrum. So first thing is activity level. Number 2 this is called rhythmicity, which means how regular the child biological functions are. Meaning, some kids are very predictable. It's like, you know, they eat on time, they sleep on time. So babies, especially, like since they're babies, subhanallah, you will find those who are having the very regular rhythm. So they eat, they sleep, and you know, and they're very you can adjust your timer, okay? But then you have those who don't have any rhythm, and everything in between. You have kids in between. So you have all the alternative. The problem sometimes with not knowing about that is when, for example, when we have a kid who is low in rhythmicity, meaning doesn't have a rhythm or a routine, if you want to say. Sometimes we say those kids have routines. They wake up at around this time, they eat, they change, they play, they sleep, they take a nap at 1:30, and then they wake up, and then they do this, and they go to bed on time mostly, right? While the others are totally like, you know, everything's kind of not, doesn't go by a routine, because like it's so messy, right? And we usually blame the kids for that. It's like, he's such a hard kid, he's just stubborn, and we start labeling them, and we start just, you know, being upset and angry. And it's understandable, honestly, if we don't know that these traits like exist, and that this is their trait, this is an inborn thing, this is their temperament, this is just who they are. So we're not going to be understanding. We're going to be upset for sure, especially with the extremes. Okay, kids in the middle are okay, yani we will survive that, but the extremes sometimes come very hard on the parents. So by knowing that, we will know that, you know, my kid is regular, alhamdulillah rabbil alameen, this guy is irregular, then I need to understand that and deal with it as it unfolds. Okay, adjust my style, and then adjust some of the environmental factors, and go from there. Okay, and let me just also say that every temperament trait, you know, and we will say that again, it's not a good and a bad, it's not good or bad, it's just a temperament trait, right? And there's always a benefit, and there are sometimes some challenges that we need to deal with, and we will talk about this thoroughly in the next few slides. Okay, the third temperament trait is sensitivity. What is sensitivity? Sensitivity is how sensitive the child is to flavors, textures, sound, light, smell, right? So again, some kids are, you know, very sensitive to sound. Doesn't have to be sensitive to all of them. Like some kids will be sensitive to sound, others will be sensitive to light, and so on. So you have those kids or babies who are like, if you just open the door, they will just wake up. And then you have those kids who will sleep in a hurricane, right? You can just put the TV on, you can sing, you can do whatever, and they're sleeping. And the thing is, it continues usually until adulthood, unless there is some changes and they train themselves. But the natural tendency or temperament is that. Okay, so you have those who can open their eyes in the, in the flashing light and bright light, and then you have those who will just be so annoyed and might be fussy when the light is too much. So sound like touch, and that hurts sometimes parents' feelings. Some kids cannot take touch. They're sensitive to touch, and I know some parents will take it like hard. Like as a baby, he doesn't like to be cuddled that much. He doesn't like to be carried and pampered and this and that. And the mom is so happy, she wants to, and the dad, of course, play with them and carry them and this and that. But the kid does not take it, right? So subhanallah, that's a sensitivity to touch, and so on and so forth. So knowing that will make you feel it's not your problem, it's not your mistake, you didn't do anything wrong. Sorry, you didn't do anything wrong, and they didn't do anything wrong either. No one did anything wrong. That's why I'm saying there's no good and bad. It's just there, and we have to modify our interactions and modify our life to help them grow and develop and help them deal with the challenging parts of these traits, if there are challenging parts. Okay. And I don't want you to confuse being sensitive or having a sensory threshold with what is known as sensory processing disorder. Sensory processing disorder looks like that, but this is extreme sensitivity or extreme hyposensitivity. So there are some kids that can be extremely sensitive to sound, for example. They can cry and fuss, and like if they hear like certain noises or high noises or certain pitches or frequencies of sound, they can get crazy. Like they can be fussy or cry or get even into a tantrum. And then you have other kids, so those are hypersensitive, right? And then you have other kids who are actually have a very low sensitivity, not even the regular stuff, very low. And here I'm not talking about the spectrum, I'm talking about like a disorder, like an extreme situation. They cannot feel touch sometimes. Some kids will not feel like you can touch them, and they don't feel the touch. Sometimes they don't feel the pain, right? So of course, these are situations. I'm shedding the light on those because if you have I don't want you to be confused between just being, less sensitive or more sensitive within a normal range, and between having what's called sensory processing disorder, or sometimes we call it sensory integration dysfunction. For those situations, if it's something extreme and you see the suffering, okay, definitely you need to visit with a professional, right? To check how to deal with situations like that. The fourth temperament is basically initial response. We call it initial response. Sometimes in some classifications, if you want to go and read, it's called the approach withdrawal, right? So some kids, it's how the kid responds to new experiences. Okay, so new experiences like what? New experiences like, for example, I like to give this example because it happens to many parents, like meeting with new parents. Like you're going to the masjid and they're meeting all the ammos and the khaltus in the masjid, right? Or going to a daycare for the first time. They don't know anyone there. They're meeting new teachers and new kids. And they, some kids, or even visiting friends, right? You will find some kids who are just outgoing. They would just go and laugh and, and talk and play. They don't care, as if nothing happened, as if they're staying in their own, home. But then you will have other kids who their initial response, okay, they are more, we call them shy. or sometimes we call these kids, they need some time to warm up. Sometimes we call them, or they call them, slow to warm up. They need some time. So those kids will tend to stay behind you or sit next to you, and you know, kids are playing, but they don't want to join at the beginning. They don't know them, they don't know the place, so they will shy away from going and playing, right? Or they, when they go to like a daycare, new place, they are, you know, they can even get more anxious because they don't know anyone. It's new situation to them. They need some time to kind of get to know the people first, and then they will be fine after that. So they might cry, they might run away. You know, I saw that myself. Like, kids would just run away in new situations. They will be scared and having this worrisome expressions. So and that's, of course, I'm not talking about, again, there is separation anxiety. This is, you know, they go together at some point. But what I'm saying is, this is the tendency, this is the trait, this is their nature. So their nature, they're generally shy, right? Even in your presence, right? Even when we're there, they don't go. They need some time before they can initiate a communication, right? And they usually do that with anything that's new. On the other hand, you will have the other kids who are just, you know, they will smile and run and go play. Nothing wrong, nothing happened. They're enjoying themselves. Okay, they look happy, you know, so everything's great. The fifth trait is adaptability. What is adaptability? Adaptability is basically how the child adapts to new situation and changes over time. The difference between, I know this can be confusing between number 4 and number 5. What's the difference between initial response and adaptability? Initial response is your first encounter, okay, with a situation, the first few minutes, or, you know, first sometimes it takes hours, but anyway. But adaptability is over time. For example, I will give you an example. Going to a daycare, new daycare. So you will have some kids who initially will go and then cry. They don't know anything. They will cry. They will not go and play. But it won't take them maybe like 2 times or 3 times before they get used to it, and they will tell you bye and just go to the daycare. So those are adaptable, although their initial response was low initial response. They didn't want to go. They, you know, at the beginning, yet it didn't take a long time to get them to transition and go to the daycare. On the other hand, you have kids who will take like several days or maybe even weeks, sometimes depends on how high the, you know, the temperament is or how low the temperament is, to adapt to the change. Okay, and this happened across the board, or it happens with like any situation, anything new, activity that you register them in an activity, and every time you drop them off, you know, it takes some time until, you know, it takes, let's say, few days or a couple of weeks or even more before they get used to that transition. Okay, so that's adaptability. So those who are, you know, usually those who just adapt fast, those are the kids, we call them flexible. He's flexible, it's okay. Even if everything changed, he's going to be fine. You know, go to a new place and he will be fine, or she will be fine, you know. But others will hold back. They will be like, no, they will take some time to adapt. Okay, so so that's another trait, right? Number, we said adaptability, so number 5, supposed to be 5, is distractibility. What is distractibility? Distractibility is basically the child, how easy the child can be distracted from doing something of interest. Like, for example, if the kid is playing with, you know, something, and then is he gonna get easily distracted? Does he leave, you know, the thing, and whenever he hears something or something happens, he would just leave what he's doing? Okay, And by the way, kids can get stuck even at another level. For example, kids who are not highly distractible. I mean, subhanAllah, every trait, you would think that if he's distractible, I don't know, you would think it's good or bad. Tell me in the chat, like, what is good and bad when it comes to distractibility? Because in every trait, as we will see later, is that there are benefits of that trait, whether it's high or low, and there are challenges that we need to kind of work on and influence, right? So for example, a kid who would go to a daycare, and let's say she forgot her toy. It's nap time, and she has to take her teddy bear and go to the nap, and then she forgot it at home. That kid might get stuck. You cannot distract her. See? So the teacher will try to talk to her. She will give her another toy. She will give her something else to cuddle with. But the girl will sit the whole nap time sitting, kind of whining or not very happy about it. On the other hand, you will have some other kid who will just grab whatever you give him or her and just khalas, will move on. So they're highly distractible. So every trait has, subhanallah, has something that is beneficial in certain areas in a certain way, but also it can be hard or challenging even for the kid himself, not just for parents sometimes, but for the kid. Okay. So that is distractibility. Next is persistence or attention span. And this talks about how persistent the kid is when faces challenges. For example, if the kid is the little kiddo is like putting blocks together or puzzles or something, and it doesn't work, he's not or she's not able to do it right away. Some kids, they are persistent. They will sit and figure it out. Or if the cubes fall, they will pick them and put them back and keep trying and keep trying. That's persistence. Other kids, they're not going to be persistent. They will just let go. Khalas, they will move on. They don't have the persistence, right? And attention span is how long they're going to be persistent, basically. Okay, in some classifications, they put attention span and persistence as two different items, but they're very close together, right? So that some kids are persistent. They will keep doing, like, keep insisting on finishing the job. Other, they will move from one job to the other or one activity to the other if they meet any challenge or if khalas, they lose interests. Okay. So the next trait is quality of mood. Again, some kids' mood is how is the kid's mood most of the time, right? So you have sometimes kids who are, some children, you see that their life, they react to life with pleasure. They're just happy and accepting and they call them sometimes sunny or bubbly or stuff like that. They have this positivity and always smiling and always like seeing the good in everything, subhanallah. But then you have other kids who are more, they see they find the fault with everything, and that's since birth. It's their, again, this is a temperament. This is not through just interactions. This can be modified, of course. Everything, as we said, the interaction and the environment, we can work on helping them out, to kind of work on these challenges. But the thing is, that's their mood. They are usually gloomy or sad, and we give them names, unfortunately, right? We always say, oh, why are you always frowning? Why are you always not happy? Can't you see the good side of, can't you ever see the good side of any story? And we keep criticizing them. That's their temperament trait. They don't mean it. Okay? You can help them, definitely, right? But don't blame them for that. That's just them. Okay? We have to accept it and work with it. We will see how to work with these traits. Okay. And finally, is the intensity of reaction. And the intensity of reaction, I find this to be actually the cause or a cause of so many problems between children and parents. Children and parents. Intensity of reaction is how intense the child responses and emotions are. Meaning, some kids are highly reactive. So whether positive or negative, you will find them loud. And like if they're happy, they're screaming, they're jumping, they're expressing their happiness, they're telling about the story, they're so excited. They're very expressive. Okay. Other kids, they are very mild. Like they might look at something, like you get them a gift or you get them something, and they would just look and smile, and that's it. And you're just disappointed, like, that's it. That's all. Oh, well, thank you, Mama. But that's all still. Where's the happiness? Where's the excitement? Right? But when it's a good thing, when it's a positive thing, it doesn't cause problems. The problems happen when they're upset, because the highly reactive kid will be loud and can be yelling, right? For a little kiddo, can throw a temper tantrum, right? So, for example, you will see the tantrum of your high intensity child can be heard in the neighborhood, okay? But your neighbor's son, just, he just does this or looks disappointed, and that's it. Why my kid is not like that? And again, we blame the kids for it. And honestly, from my experience with parents and situations, is like when the kid has any temperament traits on the extreme of the spectrum or continuum, right? And parents start to be challenging, they're frustrated. They don't know what to do. And because they don't know about the temperament traits, and they don't know that this is something inborn, and that yes, we can work on it, and yes, we can collaboratively work with the kids and try to channel it and try to kind of modify it, right? But if we don't know that, we feel so disappointed. And usually either we blame the kids for that and pinpoint, oh, you're this, you're this, you're this. Why did I have such a kid? Where did this come from? And then we start saying, oh, he's like khalto, or he's like ammo, or he's like grandma. And, so anyways, or we blame ourselves. It's like, I probably did something wrong. Okay. So the temperament traits again are inborn. Okay. And so since they're inborn, does this mean that khalas, that's it, we cannot do anything about it? Absolutely not. We can, and we will see how, inshallah. Okay. But we need to do it gradually and positively for this to work. Okay. So as we said, every person has like every one of us and one of our kids has their own unique combination of these temperament traits, right? They can be at the extremes of the temperament traits, or they can be in the middle in one trait, or extreme in one trait and in the middle in the other, or extremely high in one trait and extremely low in the other. Subhanallah, no one knows. But the thing is, there's no right and wrong temperament, and there's no good and bad. I want this to sink in. It's not right and wrong, and it's not good and bad. It's a trait. We will deal with it. Okay. But we don't have to blame the kid, and we don't have to blame ourselves either. And we need to understand also that every temperament trait has both benefits and can be challenging, especially if they are at the extremes or the end of the continuum. And I'm sure that some people now are telling me, oh, right, really, there are benefits for like a gloomy kid, or a kid who is low reactivity, or a kid who is actually high reactivity, or a kid who's overly active, or yes. And I will give you 2 examples today. Because of the time, I cannot just like deal with all 9 temperament traits, but I will give a couple of examples just to tell you, to demonstrate how we can work with different temperament traits. Okay. Why am I even bringing this whole temperament problem into light? Again, when we understand about temperaments, our children temperament, and even our own temperament, right? Because sometimes we're even asking, why am I shy? Why don't I, I see my friend, she's the social butterfly. She goes into a party and she's talking to, to the walls, right? She's just talking to everyone. And I go and I'm just sitting on the chair. I don't interact. And okay, that can be your temperament trait, right? Can we modify it? Absolutely. Okay, but it needs training, it needs time and persistence. It needs just to work on it. But inshallah, it's doable. So when we know that first, this will help us understand, like it will explain why my kid is doing that. Oh, okay, now I know. It's not because he's a bad kid. Okay, and it's not because I'm a bad parent. Number two, it helps you change the way you feel and react. Because before, for example, if you have a highly reactive kid who's loud, who yells about everything, right? Or who's very loud and reactive. And so you will be always feeling like this guy is undisciplined, right? He doesn't listen, he doesn't wait. He's so loud. He's extremely reactive. You're blaming your tone of voice. You're always blaming him or yourself, and that will make you react in a negative way. But if you know that this is a temperament trait and that we have to accept it as is, but also we can modify it, we can work with it, okay, we can help channel it, and there are benefits in it, and then kind of work on the challenges, then I'm calmer, I'm more accepting. Okay. The other thing is it can help us also set expectations. So for example, if I have an overly active kid, I don't expect that I'm going to go to the doctor's office and expect that he's just naturally going to sit and read. Okay, I have to plan for it. So my expectation is, no, he's not. So what am I going to do to make this doctor's visit as peaceful as possible, right? Or as quiet as possible? We have to plan for it. So now I know the expectation. Rather than going every time, we're hoping that this is going to be the magical time, that they will go this time, a miracle will happen, and he will or she will sit quietly for 30 minutes in the doctor's office. No, if this is not true expectation, this is not unrealistic expectation, because if I know they're overly, like the whole day, every single day, they're overly active, why do I expect that they're going to go and sit quietly? So I expect that they want to move. Okay, now I can plan for the doctor's office. What should I do before the doctor's office and during the visit to make sure that they are more quieter or kind of like abiding by the rules of the place? Okay. Number 4, this will help us also find tools, okay, to enhance the beneficial aspects of the trait. And believe me, there's always a benefit from every trait, and also channel the challenging aspects of every trait. How can I challenge it? How can I make it workable? How can I make it more positive? Okay. And we will see that when we take the examples. Now, there's something called the goodness of fit. What is that? Psychologists found that actually the biggest problem of the temperament traits is not the trait itself, or not even the extremes of the trait. They found that problems actually happen in the interaction when there is what they call a mismatch between the parent, okay, and the child. Mismatch if like the parent's temperament is the opposite of the kid's temperament. For example, if the mom is calm or like low activity, and then she had an overly active kid, oh my God, she's gonna be disappointed everything. It's like, why is he moving? Why is he jumping? Why can't you sit? Why can't you cannot take it because your temperament give you the expectation, or you feel like that's not right. Okay, and whatever he's doing, that's not right, that's not good. So here there's a mismatch. Okay. Or like a highly social mom having like a kid who is more withdrawing, or like have like a low initial response. So she will be like, okay, go sallim, go say salam, go play with the kids. Why don't you do that? And she's feeling like, oh, like, la hawla wala quwwata illa billah, his social skills are going to be destroyed. This kid is going to grow up and won't be social. And that's not true. Okay? Because all of these are things that we can work on. Again, yes, it might be against the nature, especially if it's an extreme, like at the extreme of the continuum, but it's doable with training and positivity and, you know, working collaboratively with the kid. So if we have a mismatch, and this is critically important because mismatch is expectation. It depends, like I want my kid to be so and so and so and so and so. So the first thing, if my kid is active, I want to change him. I want to not change the whole kid, of course. I want to change the temperament. Like, it's like, no, I don't want an active kid. I want like a more calm kid. So I just want him to be quiet. So I will keep telling him, sit down, don't jump, don't go, don't play. That's not right. Okay, so that creates negative interaction. And the negative interaction will affect our relationship with our kids. And that's why we're taking this in the course of building relationship, because of those misfits or mismatches between us, our own temperament and expectation, and between our kids' temperament. The thing is that we start going into struggles, and we start fighting or yelling or being negative about it, and that kind of damages the relationship for no reason. Like, for no reason, no one's wrong. It's just, this is the temperament. Okay, so the goodness of fit is when the degree of understanding. How understanding are you? The more you understand that this is a temperament trait, the more you understand that, you know, I'm willing to accept that. I'm willing to accommodate my child temperament, and I'm also willing to actively work to influence my kids' development and channel the challenging part of this temperament trait. The more the fit is good. So do you mean you can change the fit? Yes, you can cognitively change the fit by just knowing what we just discussed now. Okay, so if I'm kind of a very calm mom, or kind of quiet, very low activity, and I have a kid who's jumping all the time, and now I understand what we discussed, now I'm going to be more open to accept, oh yeah, okay, that's not his fault. It's just like, okay, how can I manage this? How can I work with him to channel those challenges? And how can I develop a plan to nurture this trait, and at the same time put rules and boundaries for when he can jump, or where, or how, and stuff like that. Okay, so we all need to work from like our mismatches to a better fit. Okay, and that can definitely be done. Now I will give this is kind of the template of how can we respond to a child temperament trait that there is a mismatch for. And I would like you to take notes, because you're going to be applying this, inshallah. There will be homework at the end of this section where you need to apply those rules in order to be able to be responsive. Remember, we said that to build a secure attachment, we have to be attuned and responsive. So how can you respond positively to something it can be so like hard for you, right? It's too much for me. I can't take that. Okay, now I understand. So I will work something out. Okay. So first you have to acknowledge your child's temperament. Number 2, pick the benefits of every and I know this is the hardest part. It's like, benefit, what benefit is there? Okay, I know, because you don't want that trait, right? And you're going to be surprised when we give the example. And then make sure when you describe their temperament, whether to them, or to others, you need to use positive words. Don't use negative words. So the don'ts are, don't negatively label the child temperament. Okay, we will take an example, and don't force the kid to go against their own temperament by forcing, not by training. We definitely we will train, but forcing them is like the shy kid is like, go and talk, go and play. The active kid is just sit down, don't play all day. Is like sit down, sit down, sit. That doesn't work. Okay, that can be damaging, not only to your relationship, but to the kids themselves. Then next is to help the kids develop, okay, to understand their own temperament. Like whenever they're old enough to understand, explain to them, that not that because it's a bad thing, but because maybe they need to work on something, or you're collaboratively gonna develop a plan of action, right? So you need to do that. Help also enhance the beneficial aspects. There are good aspects. Keep them. Keep the benefit. We don't want to change that. Remember when we talked last time about the personality priorities, and we said that we want to keep the strength of each personality priority, but we also want to modify or grow in the areas of kind of challenging areas, okay, or areas of weakness. Same here. We're going to challenge channel the challenges in a more positive way, and we're going to teach kids skills, and plan with them on how to change certain aspects of that. But over time, that's the golden word. It's over time. Remember that we need time for that to develop. Someone is saying distractibility is bad in my own view in terms of doing something meaningful, but get distracted easily with every noise or sound around. Okay, I understand, and I'm pretty sure that 90% of the people who are listening now will see anything that they don't expect or like as a bad thing. But you will be surprised that, subhanallah, everything has a positive aspect. And we are going to, I'm going to give you a tip at the end, okay, on how to find the positive aspect. Okay, you will be happy. You'll be very happy with that. So let's take the activity level as an example to apply this. Okay, so first we are going to acknowledge, okay, my kid is active. Number one. Number two, benefits of this trait. I want someone to tell me, okay, what are the benefits of like a high activity level? Are there benefits, or is it only bad? Kids who are more active, bad. No, I want a medium. I want a medium across the board. Yeah, we want a lot of things, but subhanallah, again, this is not bad. Actually, sometimes, being high on certain areas is really beneficial in certain aspects. So, as I said, what do you think? What would be a positive or a benefit from having a high activity level? Okay. For example, I would give example just in case, for the sake of time. Kids who are active they will have more physical fitness, right? Because you will take them, they will go to sports, they will always play. Of course, you have to channel it, right? They're always, join activities. They can be healthier because their body is always active, versus I'm comparing now, like someone who is very sedentary, very low on activity. Actually, although you will like it because they're not making a mess in the house, they're not jumping on the couch, and they're not doing all of the things that you don't like, yet they are prone to certain diseases, right? They don't want to do any activity. They want to skip the PE class in school. They can grow they can grow overweight. Definitely health benefits. Correct. Actually, these kids they go more outside, and then they explore the environment because they want to go out, they want to be out, they want to be moving. So their chances of knowing things and exploring the world is more than those who are just sitting on the couch, right? So subhanallah, again, and I understand that maybe you don't care about all of that now, but you just care about being sitting on the couch at quiet. I understand, but for them, actually, there's the benefit. They're healthy. And I know a lot of parents who have kids who don't want to participate in activities, or they're more calm, and they're pushing them to join teams, they're pushing them to do activities, right, for their own health, because if they gain weight, it's not good for their health. Okay, so there's always benefits. So that's the benefits. Acknowledge that this is a trait. This is something that's inborn. Remember that. This is their tendency. This is their temperament. They don't mean, I want you to just to make sure that kids do not mean to make your life miserable. They don't intend this. Okay? When you talk to them, say, if you want to describe that they're jumping or they're active, please try to be positive in the way you are describing. Don't say, why are you jumping? I know people who would, subhanAllah, especially in our culture, they say, why are you jumping like a monkey? Why? Who would say that? Right? That's not good. That's not nice. That's anyway. So be positive. You can just say, I see that your body is active. I see that you want to move. I see. It's okay to say things like that, because you also want to explain to them their own temperament. But be positive, explain it. And please don't label them negatively, like, oh, he's so hyper, or he's so wild. Try to stay, of course, self-confidence. Absolutely. We don't mean it. But it happens, because this kid is always subjected to criticism. Who wants that? I don't want it, and definitely kids don't want it either. So and stop shaming. We keep shaming kids like day and night, like, stop doing that. How many times did I tell you? Easy on kids. Train them. I'm not saying let go, khalas. If they're jumping, let them. I'm not saying that, remember, but that's not the right way of doing it. Okay. Don't urge them all the time to stop. Okay, so and explain their temperament trait to them. Tell them that it's beneficial, just like we talked now, because of so and so and so and so. But in certain situations, we have to tame it down. We have to be quieter or calmer, like when we are in class or when we're in a doctor's office. And then how can we plan those to make it happen? Because naturally, it doesn't come natural to them. It has to be planned. Okay, طيب. Then what can we do? Again, encourage the positive, the beneficial aspect by providing lots and lots of opportunities for them to go out and play and go into like sports and activities and teams and stuff like that. Also channel the trait in a positive way. So for example, he's staying home or she's staying home. Okay, today they're not going out, or half the day they're stuck home. They want to jump, they want to move, they want to do something. Okay, change just allocate areas in the house where they can play physically. Buy maybe a trampoline, or like have some games outside in the backyard. When it's good weather, they can go and play. If it's like not a good weather, try to buy something indoors, like maybe in their bedroom. Just be more accepting. You cannot just tell them to sit on the couch. It doesn't work. So channel it, give them a space, an area where if they want to do that, tell them, okay, I understand that your body wants to move, and it's great because it helps you to be healthy but we cannot just be jumping on the couches and the beds because of the you can even explain the springs and this and that. But what we can do is we can have a special area or a special place where you can jump there. You can buy them like a jump rope and they can jump there. You can and so on and so forth. So basically the idea is try to find alternatives to channel that traits. Okay, also provide lots of outdoors. So if we can go walk in the neighborhood, but we can watch a movie, no, with this kid, go walk in the neighborhood. Okay, so try to figure out lots of like activity. When you're traveling, for example, provide opportunities to break up a quiet or like let's say if you are traveling long distance, make sure with kids like that to stop, like to get some rest, like in the middle, like at a rest stop, at a rest stop, and play a game. Let them jump, let them do something. Otherwise, they're going to be jumping in the car. And people who have overly active kids, they know what I'm talking about. And they will start snitching things from their siblings and start doing things because they cannot just sit for a long time on a chair. And you shouldn't be asking them to do that, right? For a long time. Yes, you can ask them, okay, we're going to like go for example, 2 hours, and then we're going to stop and we can play a game. Or I can, like in the car, we can do this and that. We can, get their hands active, for example. And then in the rest place, we can just run or do something. Okay, that is channeling. But also you can tell them that there are certain areas where we cannot just do any of that. For example, if we are visiting a doctor, it's a doctor visit or something, train them. Okay, maybe some kids will go, is like before going, take them, like let them jump or play something physical before they go, just get their energy out. And plan what you're going to be doing in the doctor's office. So I will take, for example, what kind of game he likes, and it's going to be like 30 minutes, and we're going to be playing with that or drawing or doing something, right? And either before or after, we're going to do something active. Okay, anything that's physical. Okay, let them understand that there are situations where they need to tame it down, calm down, and give them just some calming, teach them some calming techniques, like deep breathing, like counting numbers, like having some cooling off time, some reading time. So all of that, teach them like bedtime relaxation, like like a bedtime, for example. You don't, like, don't let them do an activity before bedtime, although some kids actually, when they do that, they calm after, but not right before. Okay, but it's not recommended right before bedtime, unless your kid's body say something different, of course. But the norm is avoid doing any activity before bedtime, especially for overly active kids, right? Try to dim the lights before bedtime, like the last 30 minutes, make it like kind of calmer. Teach them again deep breathing, counting number, try to read a book just to unwind, and take all the devices away from the area where, like, no devices, no watching screens, like an hour before bedtime or something. All of these are techniques that can help, right? Maybe you don't need to do any of that for kids who are not overly active. Correct? So this is an example of how you can find the benefits. How can you channel, like, those traits in a positive way, rather than keeping, like, yelling and screaming at the kid all the time, shaming them and making them feel like they're bad people, and they're not. Okay, so I will actually skip the second example for the sake of time. But with every trait, so what I want you to do, that's the homework I told you about, is after the session, anytime during the week, have some time and try to write down the temperament traits of your kids. Okay, especially the ones that are like on the ends of the continuum, right? In the middle ones are okay, and they're not that challenging to us. But those who are kind of both ends of the spectrum, write them down and find the mismatch. Find the mismatch between your temperament and their temperament, and then sit and decide first, what is the benefit? That helps a lot. It comforts parents when they know that there is benefit. Okay, and then how am I going to accommodate my child's temperament? What plan am I having, right? And use the template that I told you about. Like, it's like, I'm gonna plan, I will encourage the benefits, and then I will channel the challenging aspects of the trait in a positive way. And I will train my kid, and I will teach them skills, and I will set limits, right? For certain things, like overly active, if they're jumping all the time in places and tried, there has to be limits, of course. Okay, so we are going to to move to our second of the presentation, and we are going to be talking about the brain dynamics or the brain science. And for that, I just want to make sure that if there's a part in this course that's important, I would say this is one of the most important parts, if not the most important, because it will give you an idea how the brain in general works and how the kid's brain in specific work, right? Across the board, regardless of temperaments, regardless of anything, okay? So when it comes to the brain dynamics, how the brain work, let me just tell you that I will make it very, inshallah, simple. I will give an example to apply it to. So there are two parts in the brain that are of interest, okay? Two parts. Of course, the brain, there are so many parts, but the two parts that we're interested in for the purpose of this is two parts. The part we call the emotional brain or emotional part of the brain, and okay, and that is the part that lies in the center of the brain. If you just open the brain in like split it and open it, it's inside, it's deep inside, in the middle, almost in the middle of the brain, kind of this area, okay, and goes and attached to the area down here. And another area that is right here, right under my fingertips, and that is the rational brain, or like the thinking brain, okay? So this lies in an area we call, just the part of the brain under my tips here, the prefrontal cortex, okay? So what is the function? The emotional brain, which is basically it's the part that lies here in this heart, red heart, that's the emotional brain. In the emotional brain, function is from the name, to feel, right? There are other functions, of course, but we're not interested. I'm just gonna pinpoint what we want for the sake of this explanation, and also make sure like I'm trying to simplify this as much as possible. So, you know, of course, it's much more complicated. So, so the emotional brain basically is the part of the brain that carries all that initiates the feeling, that's responsible for feelings, okay? Whether happy, sad, afraid, excited, upset, you name it, okay? Feelings. And also it understands the needs, because the needs generate feelings, right? Remember the 6 S's? So if I'm not getting my needs, this will generate feelings, okay? And then the second part of the brain, which is the rational brain, that's the part that is responsible for, you know, the executive function, the decision making. That's the part that has, you know, the personal skills, learning, personality, morality. Basically, that's the part of the brain that thinks, okay? Thinks rationally. That's why we call it the rational brain. So there are these two parts. Now, let's ask a question. Basically, when kids are born, like a newborn, do you think they have a functional emotional brain and a functional rational brain, or not? What do you think? So I know, for the sake of time, I'm hoping to see answers before I answer. But the thing is, those parts of the brain, when the baby is born, the emotional brain is already functional, meaning babies can feel. They have feelings. So they feel not only physical feelings, but they feel they want closeness, they want belonging, they want to feel like connected, right? So it's not just the eating and drinking and changing diapers, right? At the same time, the rational brain, which is the part here under like my fingertips, okay, at birth, it's not developed. It's not developed at birth. What happens that it develops gradually and cumulatively over a period of 25 years. 25 years, we're like, information are there, teaching happen, they collect information, they build understandings, they build skills, they personality building, identity, decision making, skills like problem solving, conflict resolution. So they're not born with these, right? Like I've never seen a baby who can solve problems when they're babies, right? But it starts at some point and gradually it evolves and evolves and improves and improves and improves, right? And for the development of the rational brain, we need two components. Two components are needed. Okay, time, because certain areas of the brain will not be functional or does not reach maturity until a certain period of time. Okay, and teaching, and someone to teach. Teaching here doesn't have to be direct. It's like I'm telling him how to solve problems, or no. Teaching meaning like I can learn from the environment. Okay, so there is like what we call the indirect teaching or social learning. Like I see what people do and then I kind of learn. So these are the two components for the development of the rational brain. So we start with nothing in here, and then it keeps not the temperament are already there. Temperament are traits. Don't confuse this with the rational thinking. Okay. So we start with nothing, and then there are potentials طبعا for everything, but I'm not talking about those. I'm talking about the process of gaining the skills. They're not there, but they slowly over time start happening, and they are cumulative. Like today I will learn something, tomorrow another, after a year this and this and this, until I refine those skills. Okay. Now, how do these two parts work together? Why are they important? So I'm gonna give an example, and you can apply it to any example. But like an example would be like a 4 years old like broke his car, toy car, or a 10 years old who let's say struggle with math, like doesn't want to solve his math problem. Anything. Let's take the toy example to see how these two parts of the brain work together. Okay, so first, let's say the incident, whatever happened to us, and I want you to look on the slides. I'm going to be moving my cursor just to let you know where I am. So life events or interaction, whatever happens in life goes in here. طبعا, of course, is going to be influenced by our temperament. Okay, that's why I put it up here. But then what happens is it goes to the emotional brain. This is very simplified, of course, right? So it goes to the emotional brain, and it causes like it meets like whether it met the needs or not, and then it generates feelings. So let's take the broken car or toy for a 4 years old who went and he was playing with his toy and it broke. Now, how does he feel? So toy broke, that's the incident, that the event went to emotional brain. Now I'm sad, or now I'm angry. So remember, the rational brain is the part of the brain that responsible for the decision making, that it controls the behavior and controls the emotion. So the rational brain is actually the part of the brain that controls the emotions in a conscious way, in a rational way, basically makes sense of emotions and solve the problem. But we know that this part is under construction, right? Rational brain is still under construction, is not, it's not mature yet. It has very few, for a 4 years old, it just, started developing some skills. So it depends. If the car is not that important, okay, like, the kid does not care about it very much, then it will go to the rational brain. Rational brain is like, I don't care, it's not important, I will play with something else. Fine. Then the kid will be regulated and he will behave appropriately. He will basically tell you, oh mom, my car broke, and then he will go and figure out something else and play. But if emotions are intense, or if that car is important to him, right, and the emotions are intense, what happens is the emotional brain will send impulses to the rational brain saying, help me out. Rational brain, please help me out. Your function is to control me, right? So please help me out. My car broke. I'm so sad. I'm so mad as well. But the rational brain will respond by saying, I'm so sorry, I cannot help you. I don't have the skills and the ability yet to solve a problem like that. This is too much for me. I don't know what to do, right? So you're on your own. You're on your own. You just figure it out. The emotional brain is not the part of the brain that is, that doesn't do executive function. That's not the rational decision making. That's not. But what does it know? The emotional brain main function is actually to, the emotional brain function is actually to protect us from danger. Okay, let me give you an example. Like if you're walking in the neighborhood and you found like a dog, like a huge dog charging at you, right? Your direction, coming your direction. Okay, what would you do? Or what would people do? Doesn't have to, everyone can react differently. So someone might run away, like, oh, a dog, and I run, and forget about the dog now. Okay, so you can run, or you can look on the floor, like you find, let's say there's a rock, or there's a piece of wood or a branch of tree or something next to you. Then you start, scaring the dog, and, or trying to hit the dog or scare him, or you will freeze. You will just stand still. Those are usually the three reactions. There's more now into like the fawn, but that's not gonna probably happen with the dog. Anyways, so that's what is known as the fight, flight, freeze. So basically, when our brain senses danger, part of the brain called the amygdala, it kind of hijacks the brain. It takes over. Basically, what it does is it sends impulses, to the rational brain to shut down the connection between actually the emotional brain and the rational brain. There is no time to think. Yani, the dog is charging at me. There's no time for me to say, do you think this dog is going to bite me? Or maybe he looks like a good dog. Maybe he's just he's happy because I'm here. Or maybe he thinks I have food. There's no time. A dog is charging, you sense danger, right? Then this amygdala will shut down the pathway to the rational brain, shut down, and will take over, which we call it like amygdala hijack. It hijacks the brain, and it takes you down the fight, flight, freeze response. Fight or flight or freeze. Okay, and based on that, you're going to either run or hit the dog or freeze in your place. Now, this reaction, sometimes when we are faced with intense emotions, the emotional brain will still read intense emotions as danger. It's just not a physical danger, it's an emotional danger. So what it does, it carries the same mechanism. It will stop the rational brain from thinking, and it will take the brain down the fight, flight, freeze response. By the way, the fight, flight, freeze response is called also a stress response, meaning that that response is not just a response, just not actions. Those actions happen because there is like chemicals that are poured in the brain and the body, namely adrenaline and cortisol. And those chemicals work almost on every single cell in the body to shut down certain things and open certain things, right? So that's why we call it a stress response. So basically, if we have intense emotions, the brain will read it as danger, in a way, emotional danger, and it will go down fight, flight, freeze response. Look at an adult. I'm not even talking about kids now. Look at an adult, for example, who's having a conflict with someone, and then they're yelling and screaming or hitting, right? What is that? Do you think this is a rational brain function, or do you think this is an emotional brain function? That's a fight, flight. What happens is that, and even after everyone calmed down, they said, look, I lost it. And they did lose it, like literally, because they lost their rational brain. What happened is, whatever happened between these two guys, for example, it's emotionally perceived, it's intense emotions, shut down the rational brain. Now, this is not functioning. Amygdala hijack, take us down the fight, flight, freeze. So what happens is, that's a fight response. And that's basically a stress response. This is not the rational brain. So it happens to us even as adults. So imagine if we as adults sometimes lose it. What about kids? Kids have two disadvantages. First, they don't have a mature rational brain. It's still on like going, it's under construction, it's still building, it's still, not like 100% functional, just little skills here and there, some very minimal experiences here and there that should accumulate over time. So they don't have actually the rational brain strength to make sense of this and be wise and rational, right? So what happens, and also in addition to the fact that, intense emotion can even shut down the emotional brain, the rational brain totally. So even if there are few or little skills here and there, they're not going to work. So let's go back to the car situation or the toy situation. So the kid who loves his toy, this is my favorite toy, 4 years old, favorite toy, broke. Then his rational brain will say, oh, this is too intense for me. So the emotional brain will take over and the kid will go down the fight, flight, freeze response. Okay. The fight, flight, freeze response, what would it do? The kid, for example, can come and throw a tantrum or come and yell and scream. It's like, mama, look at what happened, and start yelling and start crying and maybe throw himself on the floor, right? We see that, let me just say something. When this happened, all what you're seeing is basically what we call the misbehavior down here. It's the result of the fight, flight, freeze response, right? This is like the tip of the iceberg. The iceberg, we only see the tip here, but we don't see the root of the iceberg. We don't see what's behind it. So what's behind what we call the misbehavior of the child? There is feelings and needs and extreme feelings or feelings that the kid was not able to control or regulate. That's why Dr. Tanya Tigger called it's a dysregulation. There is a dysregulation, okay? And like disintegration between the emotional and the rational brain. They're not able to work together. So as a result of that, the rational brain, whether because it's totally shut down or because it doesn't have the ability, doesn't have enough skills to navigate the situation, so it will not be able to respond rationally. So emotional brain will take over and we end up with a fight, flight, freeze. When you see that, you think, oh my God, this kid is so undisciplined, he's misbehaving, he's a monster, and we start saying and labeling and doing all of that. But the matter of fact is, this kid is actually dysregulated. He's disintegrated. He does not know how to control and regulate his feelings. He has intense feelings, and they show up in the form that you're seeing because of the fight, flight, freeze response. Make sense so far? Inshallah. So now, then what do we do? Actually, before I turn to what do we do, let me share with you what Dr. Daniel Siegel, Dr. Daniel Siegel has something that I want all of you, inshallah, whenever you have the time, to go online, go on YouTube and type Daniel Siegel hand model of the brain. He explains this whole rational brain, emotional brain. Basically, he represents it on the palm of our hands. So he says that the emotional brain is represented by, I don't know if you can see me, is represented by the thumb, and this area is the brain stem, and then that's the part responsible for emotions, and then the rational brain is represented by the fingers like that. And he said in a state of regulation, when the two parts of the brain are working together, right? We call that they're always integrated. They're talking to each other and managing situations. But when emotions are intense, whether for us as adults when we lose it, or for kids, which is going to happen way more because their rational brain is not developed. So what happens is, when this happens, there is disintegration, or the communication between the emotional and rational brain weakens or even become interrupted. And he calls it flipping the lid. He thinks of it like this is the lid. The rational brain is basically the lid covering the emotional brain and regulating its functions. But when emotions are intense, there is a disconnection, and he explains it as we flip the lid, right? So our kids flip the lid, and he recommends that we start explaining this to our kids so they can gain an awareness and understanding about how their brain functions, right? So we tell them, oh, you're emotional, when emotions, of course, depends on the age. And we can start explaining this to our kids in a very simple terms, starting maybe at 5 years old. Even they can understand, but in a very simple way, of course, not complicated, not all what I said, right? That we have emotions, they get intense, and our rational brain, the one that thinks, kind of flips. So when we have a flipped lid, we cannot really think rationally. Sometimes we get angry, and so on and so forth. There are many videos online, whether Dr. Daniel himself, or there are some videos that are done to explain it to kids. So you can even listen to those and explain them to your kids through those videos, inshallah, right? So with that being said, let me go back and take the response. Let me see how the interaction would go. Now the mom seeing the kid throwing a temper tantrum or yelling or screaming or whatever, mom in her mind, there are two responses that can come out. Either the parent will respond, I would say, in a positive way, in a responsive way, remember, and they will do the what we call the connection before correction, and that's another for another time, right? We have to connect with the feelings. We have first to understand the feeling. Remember, to attune. Remember, attachment happens because we attune, and respond positively, timely, and appropriately. That's what we need to do. So if I understand this, what I will do, I would say, oh my God, like he's so sad, he's so angry, his brain cannot take it, the amygdala hijacked him, his rational brain is shut down or not even able to think rationally. So he's now going down a stress response, fight, flight, freeze. And that's the fight response that I'm seeing. So he's dysregulated. Now I know my kid is dysregulated. So the way to handle it is to help him regulate. We need to co-soothe, co-regulate. We'll talk about this when we take one of the essays, inshallah. So basically, we'll connect and validate feelings. Simply, we validate feelings. Oh, I'm so sorry. I know you love your toy. This is your beloved car. I know how important. You're sad because it's broken, right? And calm him down, and then start problem solving, right? And then when the kid is calm, you can always tell him, learn, then teach him. Like if this ever happen again, or it ever happens that you lose something or something break, we can think about it this way. What can you do, and problem solve. And it's like, okay, I will come to you, mama, and I will tell you, or I will go to baba to fix it. That's teaching. That's how you teach kids. But of course, after they calm down, not when they're mad. Okay, so calm them down through connection and validation, and then after that you can problem solve, teach skills, and set limits. Okay, that is the responsive responsive response. Okay, but sometimes we don't do that. Sometimes what we do is, like, we see this and we start saying, like, what happened to you? You're so silly. Why are you making a big deal out of this? It's just a car. There are people in the world that don't have cars, and we start bombarding the kid with, like, blaming and shaming and yelling and screaming. Some parents might even lose it and hit, right? And of course, when the kid is subjected to that, guess what happened? We're initiating another cycle. That's a new event, right? We said anything that happens, go down this path. So now mama is yelling and screaming and shaming and blaming me. Now I feel even worse. I'm more mad. I'm more upset. I don't like this. I'm more angry. Correct? So impulses will go to the rational brain again, saying, oh, please help me out. Please help me out. My mom is telling me that I'm silly, I'm this, I'm that. Rational brain will answer simply, I'm so sorry, I cannot. I wasn't even able to take care of the broken toy. Now you want me to take care of the broken toy and your mom hitting and blaming and shaming and putting you down. Give me a break. I can't. So the kid will go, again, emotional brain takes over, amygdala hijack, goes down another fight, flight, freeze. And what happens is the kid might start like even yelling more. Sometimes we see the kids get so angry they go bite the mom or hit her, or like throw themselves on the floor or hit the wall, whatever the reaction is. Or they might flight, go to the room and cry like vigorously, like, or stay alone in their pain. All of these are kind of like negative interactions. These are not responsiveness. Okay. So that's why we should be careful how we deal with our kids. Even if we're upset, let's calm ourselves. Let's be conscious about our reaction. Now we know. Before we didn't know that this is a fight, flight, freeze. Before we didn't know how the brain works. Now we know. So we have to be more conscious parents. We have to be conscious of how we deal with our kids. Because what happens is when we initiate another cycle like that, let's see what will happen. What will happen is, and follow me now, when the mom does that, there's one problem, is that with every single interaction that happens, okay, with every single interaction, you see this yellow folder, right? With every single interaction, our brain deposits concepts and beliefs about ourselves, about the person who we are interacting with, and about the environment where we live. Okay? So let's apply this to that situation. Mom yelled or screamed and said all of that. Then now the kid is thinking like, what is he depositing? What does he believe now about himself? Or what is he depositing about himself per this incident? Okay, I'm silly. I shouldn't be upset. So we're denying feelings. Remember last time we said deny feelings, right? Or not even denying. This is a disapproving, right? And punishing, right? Go to your room. I don't want you to, or hit him, right? Or yell at him. All of these are punitive techniques. So what happens is the kids start building beliefs about himself. I'm not good. I'm silly. I don't know how to feel. I'm a bad person. I'm not loved. He will interpret it in whichever way his brain will be able to grasp. And then they will start building beliefs and concepts about the person who is interacting. In this situation, it's mom, right? But then it can be a teacher, it can be a sibling. With every situation, our brain does this. Of course, this is very simplified. Okay. And the environment. Then they will start feeling, oh, this is a place where I'm not, I don't feel comfortable. Over time. Of course, this is with repetition. It doesn't happen just, yes, every time we deposit something, but the collective understanding and perception will depend on if this is a pattern, right? If it's a pattern of doing that. So now the kids start depositing beliefs about himself based on the mom interaction. Because we have to understand that kids at this young age do not think abstractly. Kids do not have the ability. The level of brain maturity is at a point where they do not have the ability to think about what's behind my mom's response. They cannot think, oh, maybe my mom is stressed out, or my mom is having a bad day, so that's why she's saying that. No, they will think that I'm bad, or mama doesn't like me, right? And then think about mama. What about mom? Now I'm depositing ideas that my mom is not fair to me. My mom is not loving. My mom doesn't care about me, right? All of these are things that the kid is depositing because of that. Does this mean that these ideas are correct? No, they're not. But that's their perception. Remember, kids' brain is not developed to understand all of that. That's why we have to be very cautious about interacting with our kids. We have to be really careful because they're not adults. They're not mini adults. They don't understand what we understand. So they're not going to think, oh, she's doing that just because she doesn't want the noise, or she wants me to be to be resilient and not cry for a car. They will never think this way. They don't have this brain ability. They only think concretely. Whatever you say, they will, especially the younger they are, the more concrete the thinking is, right? So if you say you're silly, I'm silly. If you think, why are you crying for that? Then I shouldn't be crying. I'm selfish, or I am bad, or I'm a bad person. Right? I'm not good enough for my mom. My mom doesn't love me. All of these are dangerous perceptions. Are they correct? Most probably not. But again, like Dr. Dreiker said, he said, kids are good observers, but poor interpreters. They observe what we do. They observe the environment. They are very, they take care of everything that happens. But then when it comes to their brain interpretation, they might totally give a wrong interpretation. So the mom definitely who yelled for the broken car did not mean that she doesn't love her kid or that her kid is bad. But that is the perception that his brain understood, because he doesn't have the capacity or the ability or the maturity to, analyze the situation, critical thinking, what's happening, why did she say that? And they don't have abstract thinking. And abstract thinking means that the symbol of the reason behind the action. They don't have that. They just take whatever you do is whatever, they're very tangible. Whatever you do or say is whatever they will accept. They're not going to think beyond that. Okay. And usually this skill kind of develops around, teen years, like adolescence. Okay. Of course, again, this is cumulative. It's a process. It's not like around adolescence, all of a sudden it will just develop. No, it's gradually developing one point, but it does not reach, like a good maturity level until adolescence. Okay. So that's the problem, is the kid now is depositing all of this with every single incident that's happening. And of course, what is this going to affect? That's going to affect two things: the personality of the child, because he's depositing beliefs and and concepts about himself. Okay, he's seeing himself as such based on his interactions, on collective interactions, of course, right? And also this is going to affect your relationship, because the more you do that, it's something, we're all humans. Every now and then we all lose it. But even if we lose it, we go and apologize. We go and say, I'm sorry, I didn't mean it. We will talk about this with the first S. But long story short is that if this is a pattern, if parents that's their, way of discipline is just punitive or always permissive, both are not great, right? Then the kid will build the wrong perceptions. But his brain is not going to know that these are wrong perceptions. Of course, sometimes they're right, sometimes they're wrong, depends, right? But so not all the perceptions are correct. Let me put it this way. Some are not. But the important point for all of that is that this is going to affect the kid's personality, mental health. Remember, mental health and relationship, which is exactly what we're talking about. That's why we're going to study the 6 S's, because by giving these needs, the feelings are going to be appropriate. The rational brain is going to be working more and more. So it's going to create like a mental well-being and a positive and secure attachment. Okay? So, but the thing is that it doesn't even stop here. What happens later on, and inshallah, that's the last slide. What happens is that this yellow box, which I call the archive, every one of us is carrying an archive, is going to be basically at the entrance of our brain. Basically, whatever incidents or life events that are going to happen, they are going to be filtered through this archive, meaning this archive will be the filter through which any incident that happens take a meaning or interpretation. So when someone says something to you, this, and you know this person from before, it's not as if this is your first encounter. No, it runs through what you have in your archive about that filter, about that person. So the archive looks like maybe this. Of course, it doesn't in real life, but just, symbolic. Like the archive is kind of having folders like that. So there's a folder for mama, folder for baba, there's a folder for math, there's a folder for siblings, there's a folder for everything, has a folder in there in this archive. And whenever something happens, it goes to see what is my collective idea, what is my perception, what is my interpretation of this event. And based on this interpretation, what happens is I act. It's going to go to the emotional brain, rational brain, do the same thing. So to make it simple, I will give an example. For example, if we're walking in the masjid or walking in the neighborhood, and we saw like one sister or one brother, and they're passing by, and we said salam alaikum, for example, right? And that person didn't answer. Okay, if my perception of that person, if my archive about that person tells me, for example, that this person doesn't like me, they're jealous, they hate me, they talk bad behind my back, whatever, something like that, then this situation will be filtered through this archive, and then I will have certain feelings. I will feel bad, I will feel angry at that person, I will feel frustrated, I will feel upset. And then what happens is I will decide, some people will decide I'm not, I will be emotional. And then, or even if I rationalize, they're like, if this is my archive, right, I will feel like, I don't want to talk to this person again. Some people might get really emotional, hijacked, and they would go fight. It's like, why didn't you say salam? The salam is for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Why didn't you answer me? Right? Where did this come from? From my perception about that person. Let me prove this to you. Now, if I tell you that person who didn't say the salam is your sister or your best friend, okay? So your archive is going to give you a totally different perspective, totally different interpretation, right? Because you will be thinking, rather than thinking that she hates me, she doesn't like me, she want to put me down, you're going to interpret it as, oh my God, she didn't even see me. Probably she's absent-minded. I hope she's okay. She's probably thinking about something, or maybe she didn't hear me. See the difference? So it's the same situation, exactly same thing, but what makes the difference on how we feel, because we're going to feel maybe worried. Maybe we're going to tell her, it's like, what happened? Why? I told you salam alaikum, you didn't answer. Are you okay? And we'll be so maybe empathetic and ask if she's okay, rather than just be angry and go fight with her. Where did this discrepancy came from? Where did it come from? It came basically from the filtration. It came from the meaning that our archive gave to the incident. And that's the dangerous part, is that every one of us has, we're walking archives, right? This archive is full of all our past experiences, and especially our childhood experience. It has our expectations, our thoughts, our beliefs, our conditioning, our traumas. There are images. There's basically everything considered in this archive. And whenever anything, even life event, happened to us, it's filtered through this archive to give it an interpretation and meaning. And based on that interpretation, we're not starting all over again. We're not starting fresh. Absolutely not. Now we have an archive full of information that will interpret the situation. Can it interpret the situation wrongly? Absolutely. The interpretation can be right, but it also can be wrong. Depends on how this archive was put together. And for adults, maybe we can work on a better, because we understand more, our brain maturity is higher, then we can reason. But for kids, they don't have these abilities. So they will understand our negative interaction in so many different ways. And that's why when they did this astonishing research, they did it. It was a huge research in the United States, and they asked adults if they felt loved when they were younger, and 80% said that when they were young, they felt that they're not loved. They felt their parents didn't love them. And definitely, I cannot even believe that 80% of the parents don't love their kids, right? But it's not the love, it's the interpretation that these kids gave to the interactions. That's why we say we have to be extra careful when we interact with kids, okay? Because you don't know how they're going to interpret what we do. So we have to be always attuned and responsive, positive as much as we can, right? If we make mistakes, just correct them, and always explain. So even if they get something wrong, or their brain registered something wrong, you're always working to kind of explain it and correct it. So you don't want your kids to have like a misinterpretation or misunderstanding, or an archive that has, you know, like a lot of like untrue information. But the problem is this information, which is not true, is gonna filter everything that happens, whether in their life in general or with you in person, because as I said, it affects their personality and their perception of the world and their perception about themselves, and also it will affect their relationship with you. Okay, so so think about all our likes and dislikes. You will find that they are in this archive. If you don't like math, where did this come from? Think about it. Your archive is telling you that. Why? Because there are certain, or Quran, subhanallah. Now, I warn a lot of parents, be careful when if you want your kids to memorize Quran or read Quran or anything Islam, especially religious, be extra cautious and extra careful. Do it in a positive way. Because if those people who always yell and scream and punish for the kids to just go and pray, or for the kids to memorize Quran or this or that, what happens is they are creating an archive that is so negative about the Quran. We have to be careful what we're doing. I understand that we don't, we didn't know that before, but just be careful, because their interpretation is going to affect not only your relationship with them, not only themselves, but whether they like something or dislike it. So if the Quran is always the subject of harshness and fights and resentment and shaming and blaming and hitting, then the next time you're saying, go memorize, passes through the folder, the archive, and in the archive it says, I hate that, or I don't like it, or this is that always caused me trouble. You don't want this to happen, okay? So we have to be extra cautious with what we put in our kids' archive, right? And last time, whenever we were making the exploration of our attachment and emotion styles and personality traits, actually most of that is within our archives, right? And that's why we see we have triggers in our archives. Where do they come from? We're triggered, with some situation. Where are the triggers coming from? They're coming from that past experiences, from these archives they're telling us, oh, this is triggering. So we said the trigger is like a wound. You touch it and you explode. Why this particular situation? Because it's in my archive. It's negatively perceived, right? So with that, inshallah, we came to the end of our session. جزاكم الله خيرا for attending. الله بحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. والعصر إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر. صدق الله.